Okay, let's go. I'm Mike Diggs, and this is me reading Wikipedia. What? All of it? It seems that there isn't a day goes by at the moment where statues are not part of the news, and in particular a statue of Winston Churchill on Parliament Square. So today I thought we'd read what Wikipedia has to say about that particular endangered species. The statue of Winston Churchill in Parliament Square, London, is a bronze sculpture of the former Prime Minister Winston Churchill, created by Ivor Roberts-Jones. It is located on a spot referred to in the 1950s by Churchill as "where my statue will go." It's nice that he knew that he would have a statue. It was unveiled in 1973 by his widow Clementine, Baroness Spencer Churchill, at a ceremony attended by the serving Prime Minister and 4 former Prime Ministers, while Queen Elizabeth II gave a speech. The statue is one of 12 statues on or around Parliament Square, most of well-known statesmen. The statue is 12 feet high and is made of bronze. It was sculpted by Ivor Roberts-Jones and is located on the main green of Parliament Square, opposite the Palace of Westminster. It is said that the artist's friend, Kyffin Williams, stood in as a model for Churchill. The statue shows Winston Churchill standing with his hand resting on a walking stick and wearing a military greatcoat. His pose is based on a well-known photograph of Churchill inspecting the chamber of the House of Commons after it had been destroyed by bombing on the night of the 10th of May 1941. The plinth is 8 feet high, with Churchill inscribed on it in large capital letters. A proposal to insert pins standing out of the statue's head was turned down in the 1970s. The pins were intended to stop wild birds from sitting on its head. I find that funny, and that's something we should probably look into. But the idea that Churchill would have had pins sticking out of his head like Razorhead would definitely have changed things in the current situation. The Churchill Statue Committee had concerns during the statue's development process that it looked a little too much like the Italian fascist leader Benito Mussolini, whilst the head was still only cast in plaster. A report on it stated that, at the moment, the head is undoubtedly like Churchill, but perhaps not quite right of him at the pinnacle of his career. The cheeks, the eyes, the forehead, and the top of the head require some improvement. I told Mr. Roberts-Jones that above the eyes I thought I was looking at Mussolini. Roberts-Jones agreed to modify the sculpture to reduce the dome of the head in order to lower the forehead. Can you imagine if the sculpture had got it wrong and the committee had not intervened, and we ended up with a statue looking like a punk version of Mussolini in a greatcoat? In the 1950s, David Eccles, the then Minister of Works, showed Churchill plans for the redevelopment of Parliament Square. Churchill drew a circle in the northeast corner and declared, "That is where my statue will go." The statue that was eventually installed was first suggested by John Tilney, Member of Parliament for Liverpool Wavertree, in a parliamentary question in 1968. Initial estimates by the sponsors of the Winston Churchill statue appeal put the cost of the statue at £30,000. The sponsors of the appeal included Edward Heath, Lord Mountbatten, Lord Portal and Baroness Elliot. The sum of £32,000 was raised by 4,500 individuals. A little bit of crowdfunding there, although I wonder if that was the general public, who are all listed in a book which was deposited in the Library of Chartwell on Churchill's birthday, 30th of November 1973. The statue was cast by the Meridian Foundry in Peckham Rye, London. The statue was unveiled on the 1st of November 1973 by Clementine Baroness Spencer Churchill, Winston Churchill's widow. Queen Elizabeth II had declined to unveil the statue herself, indicating that she thought it right that Lady Spencer Churchill should do so, although the Queen did attend the ceremony and gave a speech in which she mentioned that Churchill had turned down a dukedom because he wanted to spend his remaining years in the House of Commons. Union flags covered the statue, which were removed as a cord was pulled. Others present at the unveiling included the Queen Mother, members of the Churchill family across 4 generations, Edward Heath, the then Prime Minister, and 4 former Prime Ministers. The band of the Royal Marines played several of Churchill's favourite pieces of music. In 2008, the statue was Grade 2 listed. Notice that date, that it's Grade 2 listed in 2008, and that it was actually put up in 1973. So the current disputes around this ancient statue, showing our heritage and our favour towards Churchill during the war, were put up well within my lifetime. And in fact, it was only listed in 2008. The statue has been defaced a number of occasions during protests held in Parliament Square. In 2000, at the May Day protest, the statue was sprayed with red paint to give the appearance of blood dripping from its mouth, and a strip of turf was placed on top of the head, giving the appearance of a Mohican or punk rocker hairstyle. In June 2020, during the George Floyd protests, protesters sprayed graffiti on it over 2 successive days, including following the inscription Churchill with the words, "was a racist." As a result, the statue was temporarily covered up to preserve it from further vandalisation. A number of statues around the country, including that of Churchill, became part of a debate about whether they should remain on public display or not, and if so, under what conditions. In October 2020, Benjamin Clark was fined £200 in order to pay £1,200 compensation for the vandalism caused. And now, as we know, there's just been a new law rushed through Parliament where, in fact, people are protesting on Parliament Square today about the new police bill, which means that you could end up in prison for 10 years for putting a mohawk on top of Churchill. Replicas and related statues. A replica of the Parliament Square statue was unveiled in 1999 in Winston Churchill Square in Prague, Czech Republic, outside the University of Economics in the Žižkov area. I'm sure I've pronounced that wrong, but as you all know now, I can't pronounce many words, including English ones, so struggling with a Czech word is not really going to upset me that much. It was moulded from the original on site, then cast in bronze. A fiberglass replica stands in the Australian National University campus in Canberra, Australia. It was brought to Australia in 1975, placed in the courtyard garden of Churchill House in 1985, and moved to its present location in Acton, somewhere after 1992. I do hope that Acton is a more salubrious area in Canberra than it is in London. There are also variant statues of Churchill by Ivor Roberts-Jones on Solly Place in the English Quarter of Oslo, Norway, and in British Place, New Orleans, USA. Like the Parliament Square statue, the Prague, Oslo and New Orleans statues were all cast in London by the Meridian Foundry. Well, that's the article on Churchill. I think, interestingly, if you're watching this on video, you'll see that there are 3 competing versions of the Roberts-Jones statue in different parts of the world. I wonder if Churchill is regarded in the same light as he is in this country. I don't know what the outcome of today will be, but I did see a video. Where are we today? I don't know. It's probably the 4th of April, which is Easter Sunday, and I believe there are protests going on in Parliament Square. And I noticed that there were 20 or 30 policemen surrounding the boarded up and fenced off statue of Churchill. It's interesting that a statue can generate that much ire, I suppose, because Churchill himself wanted it put up and told people where to put it, and because it represents so much to so many people in this country. It's become literally a focus point for some of these protests. But I'm not sure that somebody should be locked up for 10 years for protesting a statue. Thank you for listening to Mike Reed's Wikipedia on the Churchill statue. If you've got any comments, please make them, particularly ones that are offensive or accuse me of being a traitor because I've talked about one of our blessed statues. But if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe, like, and listen again for the next episode.